no pierdas el tino, porque si lo pierdes, pierdes el camino. Ya le dices una, ya le dices dos, ya le dices tres y tu tiempo se acabó. How many of you know what I'm talking about, where the song is? Any one of you have heard it? Okay, so I just sang the Piñata song. And this is a song that whenever I hear it, it reminds me of when I was a kid, being blindfolded, holding a stick in my hand, standing in front of a piñata, waiting for those words to play so that I can hit the piñata as hard as I could to break it. And so when I hear the song, this is what I see. And the piñata is one of my favorite parts about my Mexican culture, and so that's why I decided to go in and research more about it. And what I learned is where the piñata originated from, how it got to Mexico, and what the traditional piñata is supposed to represent. Both a 2010 article by the Children and Youth in History organization titled Piñata Object and Wendy Devlin's 2007 article titled History of the Piñata told the same story that I'm about to share with you today. Piñatas originated in China, where paper originated from. They would hang up piñatas filled with seeds, and they would break them. After breaking them, they would go and collect the seeds, and after they would collect the seeds, they would then burn the piñata, and people would gather around, and they would kind of like rush over and gather ashes, because the ashes represented good luck for the coming year. So the story goes that Marco Polo was in China, saw these piñatas, and on his way to Italy, brought the idea with him and introduced it in Italy. And in Italy, they named this object pignata, which stands for fragile pot. And that's what it kind of looks like in Italy. That's their version of the piñata. And this tradition eventually reached Spain, where it was most commonly used the first Sunday of Lent, which is very cool and very relevant to now because Lent just began yesterday. And the Spanish missionaries then went to Mexico, and they had a goal in mind of converting as many indigenous people in Mexico as they could to Catholicism. And so they thought when they were going to get to Mexico that this piñata was going to be something new to them, something that they could use as a way to convert them to Catholicism. But when they got there, according to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania, when the Spanish missionaries arrived in Mexico, they discovered a very similar tradition with the Aztecs and the Mayans. The Aztecs used piñatas. It was a clay pot that they would hang on a pole, and they would then go and break it, and it would fall at the feet of an image of a god, which is a god of the sun, and this was meant to be as a kind of an offering to this god. And so that kind of backfired with the Spanish missionaries. They then saw also that the Mayans had a very similar tradition, where they would play it more as a game instead of a religious thing. They would hang another clay pot with a string, and they would go around blindfolded and hit the piñata. So that's very similar to our version now. But the missionaries still had this goal in mind of converting the indigenous people to Catholicism. So I'm going to show a picture of these are the Aztec temples where the piñatas were hung inside on a pole. And then the Spanish missionaries, when they got to Mexico, they used a 7-pointed piñata to represent what Catholicism was. And this is what they said it represented. The 7 cones represented the 7 sins, which are lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. The blindfold represented the blind faith in God. The colors represented the temptations of evil, and the stick represented the virtue to overcome sin. The Watchtower publication also mentions that the treats were meant to be the rewards of overcoming sins. However, an article by Susan Barbazat, published on Trip Savvy in 2017, states that the treats were meant to be the riches of the kingdom of heaven. So these are very similar representations of what the treats are for. There's different versions, but basically it's that the treats were a reward to that you overcame these sins and didn't give in to temptation. Today, the piñata, for the most part, has lost its religious significance, and if you go to Mexico, a lot of people, they know the significance, but they don't correlate piñatas to religion. It's more done as a fun activity nowadays. However, they do hold some sort of religious affiliation still, as they are still commonly used during Lent and Christmas time, which are two very big Catholic events. So I hope that the next time you see a colorful piñata or hear the words dale, 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 you automatically associate piñatas with this story that I just told you, and remember where they originated from, how they got to Mexico, and what they're supposed to resemble. Thank you.